Hello, my fellow randoms. My name is Kev Duffy, and welcome to this, our 39th episode of What's Your Random Podcast, where I discover and celebrate independent and individual creativity from the inception of an idea to the process and the practicalities of bringing that idea to life. I just went on autopilot there. I'm getting so used to saying that I may have made a mistake and just not realized it. That's how in the zone I am when I'm saying the spiel. But that's what that's what the show is about. And today I welcome a guest who is in the creative space of indie comic, out there spreading the word on Kickstarter of the most recent issue, the second issue of Icarus Metro comic. His name is Calvin Chambers, and he is also known for Juice the Manga, which was a webtoon that led to the foundations, the forming of the story that eventually became Icarus Metro. We dig into that among many other ideas, stories, concepts, one of which is Calvin overcoming some obstacles with Juice the Manga. He took some time off, and then he realized, if I'm not creating, I'm not really happy. But I won't say too much more. I will let the storytelling over the course of the episode and our conversation fill in the gaps. So without further ado, my wide-ranging conversation with Calvin Chambers. Enjoy the random. It's been a long week. It's been a long, tough Friday, but I'm excited to finish the week speaking with Calvin Chambers here, who has many fires. Yeah, it is a long week. Many irons in the fire. The hottest of which is Icarus Metro, the comic, which is being kickstarted now. So we're going to explore that, his podcast, his other comics and manga. And Calvin, welcome to What's Your Random?
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to just talk more about what I'm currently doing, and just talk about life in general.
Yeah. How is life? How has your week been?
Let's just say that it's been a really long week. It's been very slow, but to say the week ended off on a good high note. I know right now for the Kickstarter, we're at about getting close to about 40%, which is, I would say about maybe we're about 35, 36%, which is good. Just things are going good in life. Health-wise, things are going good. So, just can't complain.
You cannot ask for,
except for
yeah,
the
go ahead. Yeah, except for the
weather. Yeah.
And where are you? You're in New Jersey still? I know you're originally from there, from your bio.
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey still. Let's just say that, 6 hours it rains, 6 hours is hot, 6 hours is freezing cold, and that cycle just repeats every day.
The ups and downs. I'm in the Carolinas now, and today was like absolutely beautiful, but this weekend's probably going to be 30 degrees colder. It's just
wow. Okay.
You can't prepare, like you can't base the next day on the current day, your wardrobe and whatnot.
Not anymore, unless there's snow out.
Yeah, but having health and being happy, those you can't ask for much more nowadays, considering the crazy 2 years we've been through. But you've been pretty busy. So yeah, I'd love for you to share about maybe a good place to start is just like where you started your creative endeavors and ending with where we are now. If you could give us kind of the timeline.
Yeah. I can give a little bit of a background. I started everything after I graduated college. I am in tech, so that does occupy a lot of my time and a lot of my days. So I went to my first Comic-Con in 2016, and just exploring, seeing people do different art, seeing people do different style. I met people from like the Kubert School. We were working on like DC Comics and, other works like that at the time. And I just fell in love with like creating. I saw someone online. It's like, hey, I want to create a comic book. I'm like, let's do it. And it's just learning all the different types of things to make a comic book. And although we made a comic book and we were successful with it, selling it and stuff like that, and things were good, still feel like it wasn't top tier, or it wasn't even close to top tier. Let's just say that. What I'm doing now, I wouldn't even say, I mean, this cover behind me is one of the covers, the Kickstarter cover for Icarus Metro 2. And this is beautiful. But getting something like this is like, if we want to go into like, if for people who watch Naruto and stuff, this is like S rank. And what I was doing before was like D rank, So yeah, I started in 2016. Started making books in 2016. 2017, I made a manga. I wrote the manga, like storyboarded it, try to get everything aligned to it. And that manga eventually evolved, and I couldn't keep up with it because it was like inconsistently finding artists. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just managing things for myself, plus dealing with life at the same time. But that manga turned into Icarus Metro. So like I kind of like took the manga, skipped 8 years ahead and said, okay, this is where Icarus Metro starts. This is where the manga ends, so that I can rebuild and go back to that manga story. And that's actually something I'm working on now, but that's another side project for maybe another 2013, possibly now. But Icarus Metro is...
And that manga is called Juice? Is that the comic Juice? Okay.
Yes. She's actually appearing. She actually appears in Icarus Metro 1 a couple of times, and she appears at the end of Icarus Metro 2. But she's going to have a bigger part, as the story goes on, because she's the leader of their team. So basically, Juice, it's going to be called Juice Paranormal Activities. It's actually going to be the story of how they all got together. Here...
And for people who aren't at all familiar, so you have like a group of superheroes or vigilante superheroes, right?
From what I understand. Say vigilantes, because they all have like paranormal type powers, that exists in this world. There's like, they're in a society where aliens live there, society with like people from different dimensions live there. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say nothing closer to utopia, but more so like a diverse society where different people just, can come together and live in the same space. There's a lot of like evolution that had to take place, and a lot of technology that's way too advanced for like, because right now in Icarus Metro, they're in a timeline of 2023, right? So they're using a lot of technology in 2023 that, we don't use now. And they're using, and you'll see that, throughout the story that when I introduce like some more things, because, of course, this is just the start. Icarus Metro 1, Icarus Metro 2 is like the start of my universe. It's like the flagship, and it gives me room to like introduce the different things that I can explore later on.
It sounds like a big sandbox with like unlimited toys, and it's like, it's not just the sandbox, it's the whole playground when you have such a diverse cast of characters. And yeah, that's cool.
And the reason why I did that was mainly because I eventually want to expand and build to a point where I have other writers writing stories for these characters. Once I'm starting writing different stories for other characters, just give it room to grow for different things that could possibly happen. I mean, if we're living in a society, and they're living in a society where, there's like aliens, werewolves, vampires, all sorts of things that could play a part. I mean, they're not like vampires, lycans, werewolves, whatever, in a traditional sense that we see in like Underworld, or we see in like Blade or Dracula, but more so they're just regular people. I mean, I would say, honestly, it's kind of set up like a CW show. I'd say it's kind of set up like a CW show. I played with the idea of like creating this like comic instead of like the traditional manga route, because I've always started with like anime, like even growing up. And I didn't really like get into comics until college.
And how would you like draw that delineation between what a comic is and what a manga is, and for you as a creator?
Well, manga is just comic in Japanese.
Yeah,
that's the traditional definition. Of course, manga it's all about the style. I mean, you can see from here, this is the traditional comic style, but for manga, the traditional style for manga is, the Japanese, it looks like Naruto, it looks like Bleach, it looks like One Piece, things like that. Here, this looks like Marvel, this looks like X-Men.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So you draw the distinction based on art exclusively, or is
Yes.
there anything else that would be a point of differentiation for you? I wonder. Because it's something I'm a like Japanese comics, manga, and anime fan, and like sometimes I wonder, like, it's a comic, but we call it manga. So what's the difference? It's black and white. Is that like
Well,
the main difference? Is it the
well,
style? Is it the distribution? Is it the book style? Is it the formatting? What is
I
it that
mean,
makes it
there's
different?
there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, it is the formatting, the way you read the book. It is the color because it is black and white opposed to comics with full color. Like the literal definition of manga translated in English is comic. So, they're technically the same thing, but this is like a Japanese comic versus a American comic
Right.
versus a uh, UK comic or a African comic. They all have their specific niches, their specific styles that cater to the audience that they serve. For example, with traditional comics, they're traditionally like, I want to say 28 to 32 pages of story. If we go to manga, they're based off of chapters, and they're usually about maybe 16 to 18 pages a chapter.
Right. And then they get compiled.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
more
and then there's
easily.
like and then there's like there's webtoons too. Webtoons is a completely different type of art style. And me personally, like I have my manga on webtoons, but it wasn't a webtoon. It was more so a manga. It was just more so there for the distribution side of using webtoon. But yeah, so I played for the idea. I played with the idea of like creating this comic book story, because doing a manga at that time for me was very rough to do. Um, and
Was it just because it was trial by fire and you were like learning as you're going? And
yeah,
yeah,
mostly
that's like
mostly
the that's
yeah,
like the best way to learn, but at the same time, it
it's
leaves you with
costly.
some scars and bruises and stuff.
Yeah, it's very costly. I mean, you're paying a lot for artwork, and half the time you don't even use the artwork. So it's like, what are you paying for? I could be saving up
Mm,
for a car, I could be saving up for a house, but I'm paying, just for this artwork. Um, so I kind of gave up for a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I gave up for a little bit. I had a little self-doubt. Um, until people started asking me what my story is. What happened. I had my aunt asking me, I had some of my friends asking me, my brother was asking me, and then I said, boom, let me just start. And it was a pandemic, I wasn't doing anything. I said, okay, let me just start planning out a story. So I started planning out a story, and try to figure out where I wanted the story to lead, how I want the story to be based. Originally, Icarus Metro, I planned it to be a 12 arc story. No, 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 I lie. A 15 arc story, but I actually condensed it to be a 10 arc story, a 10-page story. Well, not 10-page. Wow, a 10 comic story.
got it.
So basically, each issue is going to be about a different member of the team, the Paladins. Right. We saw Icarus 1, the story is about Simone Stone and the stuff that she went through. Icarus 2 is going to be about Viscosity, this guy here.
And
And
for those of you who are just listening, Calvin has the cover or an alternate cover or the main cover.
the Kickstarter cover. So
The
it's a
Kickstarter
double-sided
cover.
cover.
Yeah,
So
it's really fantastic art, and there is a a dude with a scythe
yeah, so
and
so he has liquid metal
describe
power.
it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's an Italian male. His family owns an auto body shop. He has liquid metal powers, and he's a member of the team called the Paladins. Her, She is
The one who he's battling, right?
not so battling. She's more so teasing him.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll see why in the comic.
He doesn't look so stoked about it, but
No,
she looks
because
a little flirtatious.
yeah, because he's like, what are you doing? Like, you caught him off guard. It correlates well with the story. Her, she is a Latina bounty hunter. And a lot of both of them have like real villainous past, but now, working, it's more so like, when the main hero beats the villains down to submission, they realize, okay, maybe I'll listen to their point of view, and start doing things, the right way. So that's basically, their backstories. They were villains at one point until they started realizing, okay, maybe I should do things differently.
Use my powers for good, or
use power. Well, for her, not so much for good, for money, but she still protects people. So yeah, each story is going to be about a different member of the Paladins. Even the last two stories, which I have to be like a big battle, they're going to be about, members of the Paladins and like stuff that they go through. There are 10 key members, and that, one that we went over so far. Next one is him, the liquid metal user viscosity. And, they go on further, with the comic, so I'm definitely looking to like key in on their personalities, who they are, and things that make them who they are today within each story, as the story develops. Because I have a storyline, and at the end of the storyline, this whole arc will be complete, which also gives room to spinoffs. But you'll learn about each character, and I may like, the goal is do like a poll at the end to say, hey, what do you want to see next? Do you want to see?
oh, that's cool.
Characters?
Yeah. So you establish each
Yeah.
of the 10 characters, then you put it out to the audience and like, which character did you like best? And
Yeah.
you could tailor the direction, because I'm sure based on just the breadth of this universe, how many characters there are, how diverse the city is. I understand that there's 3 different sections to the city, or 3 cities that are kind of next to each other.
It's kind of like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm sure you have tons of stories in your head, but
Yeah.
polling your audience will help you decide which story to move forward with on the short term, right?
Yes. So I actually have a bunch of spinoffs already planned. One I started writing last night, another one 2 others I have in conception, that go on, maybe right before this or during the same time as, this stuff is going on. Cause it's a vast world, it's America, not just America, but it's the earth, and then there's a dark dimension, and then there's outer space. So there's so much different things going on at one time. But just to like continue on with these characters, because these are my favorite characters, like these are my first characters, right, to continue on with them, that poll will be there for, saying, okay, what do you want to see more? Who do you want to see a new storyline for? Do you want to see her?
And that's to the end of this 10 issue arc, right?
That's the end of the 10 issue arc. Yeah.
So how did you?
I'm looking forward to a lot,
Yeah. How did you decide to take Juice as the foundation? The previous project that you had given up on, you had some self-doubt, you rebounded. Mm-hmm. And what went into your decision making as to why you didn't start totally fresh and new, but instead you looked back a little bit and you pulled from the past to pull that foundation of this universe?
So Juice, she was my first character. She was my first character I created when I was working with, one of my friends. We were making comics and stuff, and then we started like pinpointing like what the characters could be, what the world would look like and stuff. And we had our own imprint. And what I took from that imprint was Juice, because she was like my Spider-Man, like if I was Stan Lee, she was my Spider-Man, So I didn't want to like leave her story out. I didn't want to just like have her left in a wasteland. So I wanted to do a story, like a futuristic story of these characters as older individuals, opposed to like freshman year, junior year of college. Just maybe just getting out of college. I just wanted to do them just a little bit older. I also a big thing with me is I kind of like the universe and kind of the story, and I didn't want to create new characters in a new story and then lose the vision of what I initially wanted to do, because then that would change the lore, you know? So I kind of like wanted to like just keep the lore of what I was doing in the webcomic and then like build upon that so that I have something to come back to build leading into. Plus, Juice had 14,000 viewers and an 8.6 rating on Webtoons. And I saw that and I said, I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, tap into that audience, right?
I was like, as I said, I need to boost consistency, but I don't need to reinvent that wheel. You know. So yeah, I came up with this. Let's just say it's not easy being a creator, like coming up with like different types of stories, because you're basically coming up with lives of different people and their entire backstory. If you miss something or you don't talk about something in the comic, then it's going to mess up consistency and stuff like that. Like I know for the first issue, I didn't have an editor, but I did have an editor for this book. And it's been worthwhile, like our Kickstarter, we started our Kickstarter, I want to say about maybe a week ago. And we have about, I want to say 20 days left. And it ends on December 3rd. So we have a lot of cool awards. I'm wearing right now an Icarus Metro hoodie. We have
that looks great.
Funko Pop. Thank you. We have 2 Funko Pop available. The Funko Pop of these 2 characters, Callus and Viscosity. We have a streetwear shirt, Juice on it. It says Icarus Metro. We have a sticker set, magnetic postcard. We have a couple of different prints, 3 different covers. The cover. So one thing I subliminally didn't notice myself doing, but I just realized it's funny because for the first book, I had Simone Stone on the cover, right? I had 2 villains just like shadowy in the background, like digitized almost. And I was like, okay, she's on the cover and stuff. It's going to be about her. And then the second book, I put Viscosity on the front cover of the first issue, just him by himself. And I didn't realize that because I was like essentially giving them their own cover of just them on the cover, like in the almost same type of pose. So each book is going to have, the main cover with them in a pose, except for maybe the third one. Like the third one, I want to go really sentimental, because the third one is going to be about family trauma and it's going to be about her, Catalyst. So I kind of want to like have a picture, like a watercolor. I'm not sure how people feel about watercolor, but like
it's beautiful.
Like a watercolor image of like her with her family and like as a little kid and like a white background almost. And like, it's like shadows of the past.
Something like, superimposed or.
Yeah, like all around and stuff like that. And, it's like one of them eerie photos from like The Conjuring or like, stuff like that. Annabelle, stuff like, yeah. So I want to do something a little strange, get people, just let people know that us as indie creators, we got a lot to offer, in terms of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there, I want to go back to, I think, this is a show first and foremost about creativity, indie creatives. And I think a lot of feedback I get out there, and then also just for myself, is that self-doubt that you talked about that caused you to stop producing your first webtoons comic, Juice, and the manga. And I wonder if there was anything other than the support of your loved ones and your friends and your audience. Like, was there anything you did individually to pull yourself out of that self-doubt and to put yourself back on track to start creating again?
Yes, there was. First, just to share about like the self-doubt aspect and the stuff that I went through. When creating, you put yourself on a timetable, you put yourself on a schedule. And I don't think a lot of people realize this, but if you're offering something like a webtoon, you're offering something like a free online thing for people to read, you have to have consistency. You have to constantly have content for people to read and for people to engage with. The thing I like about webtoons is that they have a part of it where people can comment and leave their feedback and just talk about it. So, I had that every once in a while and people were enjoying it and stuff. But the thing was, when I stopped building consistency because I couldn't afford to, people started leaving. So that started building doubt because it was like a domino effect. I couldn't afford it. Well, not here's the thing. It's not that I couldn't afford it. Well, I had an artist. The artist disappeared. Found a new artist. They gave me bad artwork, but I already paid for it. Like, it was already prepaid. Then, I found another artist, and then they, started raising their prices. So it was just like a domino effect of that. And then I couldn't keep up consistently with having that person, a dedicated person to do so. And this is before I knew that, it's better to go with contracts, before I knew about Upwork, before I knew about Facebook, before I knew about all these other different things. I was just using Fiverr. So, that just built a lot of, like, over a 2-year time, built a lot of like self-doubt. And I, personally, it wasn't something I could keep up with because there was no revenue being generated in. There was no Patreons. There was no, nothing for me to like really collect from because people weren't going to pit into something if there wasn't consistency there.
Right.
And then it's like, for example, because I read One Piece every week, right? Or I try to read every week when they're not on break. And I could see if One Piece is consistent. Every week, they're putting out a new comic, right? And at the end of the new comic, they're saying that if they're not putting out another comic the next week, they're going to say, we're going on break, and we'll see you the week after or whatever, whenever they're coming back, right? But like, if we're looking at something like Dragon Ball Super manga, or we're looking at Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest manga, they're putting out their stuff once a month. But if you don't know that, you're thinking, oh, they're not consistent. I can't read that every 2 weeks, or I can't read that, every week. So I'm going to just wait till it loads up. The thing is that also messes up certain metrics with like what people see. So, you don't realize people may be having your eyes on that content, until, months later, where they're just waiting for a lot of things to build up because they don't want to read it week to week. They want to
binge. Yeah.
They want to binge it. So that can create self-doubt in creators because they necessarily don't think that people have eyes on their content, but people just want to see everything at one time. They don't want to wait too long to read different things. And that can apply not only to manga, but that can also apply to comics too. People, if they see you got 10 issues out already, and they haven't read a single one, they're going to get all 10 issues because they want to read all 10 issues at the same time. But if they see that you only have issue 1 and that you're putting out another issue 6 months later or 7 months later, they're going to, oh, wait a minute, I can't wait that long as the person. We have, short attention spans, TikTok, Reels, all other things that keep us going and going and going at the same time. It's kind of hard to build that. Um,
Everything's on demand, but
yeah,
creators can't create on demand, right? You get
yeah, we can't.
takes a lot of time.
Yeah, we can't. We just can't create on demand. So with in regards to the self doubt, personally, how did I overcome it? I think it just took time. Personally, it took time. It took will. Me as a creator, I think the time that I took not creating was definitely needed because it made me miss it. When I
Mm.
wasn't creating, when I wasn't pitting out juice, and when I wasn't making comics as a whole, there was something in me saying, "Do it, do it." Like I heard Shia LaBeouf in the background, "Do it," um, and I wanted to definitely just put something out there worthwhile. It's not like I had something to prove, but it was more so like I had something to give. And when people came to me and started asking me this and that, and I'm pretty sure it was just more so like, are you doing what you love, opposed to just going through the motions of life.
You
Thought
got good
about it.
people around you though. If they're
Yeah,
asking and they know you and they know to ask you that, that support is critical, right?
very critical. It can keep people going. I mean, last year was a very rough year, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm going to have to. Like, it was a very rough year for people, and it made or break people, personally, because a lot of people, spending time at home, that was just not normal for a lot of people. People just go out, have fun, hang out with friends, but when you can't see anybody, what do you do? I know a lot of people picked up video games, a lot of people picked up just Netflix and different shows. And I mean, honestly, I've never seen people binge watch shows so much
I
these
know. I
days.
thought binging was like crazy before the pandemic, and then
Yeah,
you get into the pandemic, and it's like, how
like,
many how many shows did you watch in a week?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've always been a movie watcher. I've always been a show watcher. So like that was my thing. Like that's my thing with my family and stuff. Like we
Yeah, yeah,
always like, we have our movie nights and stuff. But like, from what I see from people, it's not even like everybody does it now.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And TV shows aren't even the thing anymore. Like not TV shows that are not on demand, like actual cable. People don't watch cable anymore.
Yeah,
And it's crazy because I'm like, well, I want to watch Flash and Legends. I want to watch some CW shows. I want to watch what's that show that just came out? Well, yeah, they're all on demand. Yeah, except for the CW shows. So
yeah, yeah. That's wild. Is there anything interesting that you're watching now and recommend? Anything that gets you motivated? We
um,
talk. I talk a lot on the podcast about output, right? As a creator, you're making things, but and maybe this was partially, what you did when you took that time off is replenish and have some input, have some inspiration. So, is there anything lately or in general that's inspiring to you that you might find surprising?
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I watch a lot of stuff. I'm not gonna go through and list everything I've watched in the past. But I'm a huge CW fan. I like, Black Lightning, Flash, Arrow was my favorite show. Um, I just finished Supergirl. I'm watching the new seasons of Legends on TV. Flash comes back next week. I'm watching a lot of like crime shows, Power, BMF. I'm watching, I just started The Last Kingdom. It's on Netflix. It's a Viking show. So like I'm watching like The Last Kingdom and BMF as like not source material, but more so like inspiration to like write stories like with that specific in that specific space.
When
Uh
you watch, do you get sparks of ideas that maybe are not directly related, but like
not
sometimes
I
I watch shows and I get a spark of an idea and I'm like, I don't know how that's connected to what I'm watching, but somehow it inspired that idea. It seems totally unrelated, but at the same time, I don't think if I was not watching the show, I probably would not have had that idea. Wonder if
Well,
you have that.
not. See, the thing is, I try to avoid copying as much as possible.
No, but that's what I mean. It's not like it's total. Sometimes I'll have an idea and it's totally unrelated. Like it's not inspired, it's not copied, but it's like maybe I saw something subliminally in the background and subconsciously just like arrived at this random new idea.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
I
It's
do.
a really weird phenomenon.
I do that, but the main thing that I do is I don't take plots or the things that happen within those stories and
Right.
like that. But if I see a character and I see they have a certain personality that I like, I'm gonna say in myself, in my head, I
Mm.
want to write a character. I want to make this one character with that same personality. Like I like that person. I want to explore that personality, what that person could do, the type of unpredictability can come with it. So I like looking at different characters and like how they act and stuff like that. And then in my head, sometimes I rewrite their character. Like I wish their character did this instead of that, because that didn't make any sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that could stretch your brain a little bit to reimagine and like
yeah.
get into that writer's room and make suggestions,
Mhm. I
Yeah.
wish personally. That ultimately is the goal one day, to be able to get into a writer's room and definitely be a writer on shows. Doesn't matter what network. Definitely will produce some type of greatness for either for whatever it is, whether or not it's HBO Max or Disney Plus. I'm definitely looking to just expand just the outreach of the stories and personalities that I have to offer.
What
So
it,
what are you
what
saying?
is it like for you? Yeah, I noticed that you have 10 heroes or paranormals. And you have 10 villains in the comic. And that's a lot of characters to manage, all of those personalities, all of the triangles and the network formed by all these personalities interacting. So I'm wondering if you could speak towards the development of each character when you know that you're going to have so many.
So I'm glad you asked that, because I don't divulge too much into so I divulge into every chapter, every issue, a full depth deep dive of the personality of each paladin member, right? Of the main protagonist. But you'll get to learn the different personalities of the antagonists throughout the entire story. So I'm not focusing on, just their personality in just one book, like I'm doing the protagonist, because the antagonists, they'll make cameos and appearances throughout, but each hero will be facing off against an antagonist in every story. So except for Icarus 2, because it's the same antagonist as Icarus 1. But then there are stories that they face off against 2 or 3 antagonists. Like Juice, I'm having her fight like 4 or 5 at the same time. Just to build up the pacing a little bit. But yeah, definitely managing it is very difficult. But what I usually do is like outline and chart things, where I say like, okay, this person is going to exhibit these personality traits, because this is what I want the reader to view this character as, and just expand on that as they go, and just keep a record of everything, because it's kind of hard to like manage all of that. Of course, like there are going to be some villains who die. There are going to be some villains who survive. And that also leaves room for them to appear in spinoffs and for me to go a little bit more in depth. But, for me, it's year one, it's my first year, like with this Icarus Metro storyline, with Icarus Metro comics. So yeah, I know, like, for example, with Marvel, they started in 1942 or around that time. They started after World War II. And here we are now with feature length movies, TV shows, 4K, the whole nine. I know, for example, I'm not going to be able to get to full length character bios and stories by end of year 1, year 2, or even year 10. But hopefully one day, I'll be able to. People will be able to recognize these characters like they do Marvel and DC, and hopefully I have people to carry on these stories after I'm gone. Hopefully another 60 years, and and definitely just push out, just the full breath of fresh air that we need in the comic and pop culture space.
Yeah, and I noticed too, something that's kind of fresh is I don't really remember looking through your Kickstarter, you referring to them as super, even though I probably said over the course of this podcast so far, superheroes, but you refer to them more as paranormals. So like, what is that point of differentiation for you in that regard?
So I don't like the constant use of superheroes, like because Marvel, DC, Image, all the other imprints, and I don't want to. I'm not throwing shade or nothing on them, but a lot of people use superhero. Like this is a superhero comic, and people kind of label that as, oh, like for example, if you didn't read comics, right? You didn't read comics, you weren't a fan of superheroes, you thought that was childish or whatever. And I gave you a book and one of these books, and you said, hey, what is this book about? This is interesting. What is this about? I said, oh, it's a superhero comic. You're going to be like, superhero? And, you're going to be expecting the cape, the underpants, stuff and it's nothing like that. So that's what I typically label superheroes. Like paranormal powers is that is their powers, and getting you'll get an understanding of the powers, within the book, where they come from, where they stem from. But I wouldn't call them superheroes because, and I always say this, that they fight the villains, right? They fight the villains to protect the city. But what happens to the debris falling? What happens to the people caught in the crossfire? I mean, can you really call them heroes if people are still dying?
Mm.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's interesting to kind of like reframe the genre a little bit with new words, because people come into the comic space and into these genres where there's a group of good guys fighting a group of bad guys, and they come in with the preconceived notion of superheroes and what that means. But by kind of reframing it, putting it through a different lens, you could come up with a more nuanced story, maybe.
Yeah. And I also want to have some dark, gritty storylines too. I don't want to just like save the day all the time, I feel like when it establishes a little bit more, I can have certain characters go to a little bit more gritty storylines. Of course, these aren't gritty characters per se at the moment, but they can be,
right? Like real people. Everybody has a gritty side.
Yeah, it just depends on who else I introduce and what else I introduce. Look, I plan to be creating for a very long time, despite what happens or despite the Icarus Metro storyline, but I plan to be creating a really long time, and just to be fleshing out these characters, getting other writers to work on different stories themselves, just making sure that everything is just beautifully written and beautifully designed.
Do you have a favorite paranormal power among your protagonists and antagonists?
My favorite power.
I mean, top three if it's too hard to decide one.
Okay, that's much better. That's much better. I can do the top three. So number three would be, I got a character called Dr. Dawn, right? And he isn't a paranormal, but he has this ability to harness some type of mythical energy to have himself phase through different things. So it's not like phasing as he can walk through walls, but it's more so like I want to say like Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Two would have to be I have a character called Sequencer. She will be making an appearance in Icarus Metro, but she was the mentor, but she's mentioned in Icarus Metro 1. She's the mentor to Simone Stone. She has the powers to change into any type of animal or creature. Basically shifting her DNA sequence.
Like a shapeshifter, but from a DNA perspective, that's cool.
Like a shapeshifter, but like say for example, she's able to like keep her face the same, and then like turn her one arm into like a crocodile arm, and the other arm into like a gorilla arm, and then like turn her legs into like a cheetah and like fight like that. And then the top power I would say is my character. He actually makes an appearance in Icarus Metro 2, called Net. So he's able to harness cybernetic energy and basically able to fight with like cybernetic particles. So he can like form blades around his arm. He can form blasts and shoot blasts. He can like create cubes and run on top of the cubes, create stairs, run up into thin air, and form like a missile on his back and blast the missile. He basically can do anything.
Power of creation.
Yeah,
essentially.
Ultimately,
material creation.
Yeah, ultimately the power of material creation. But on a large scale. So like if he went, for example, I feel like the only way to like stop his power from even being used is like if he was transported back to like the 60s or something.
I hope the antagonists aren't listening.
That's true.
You just revealed his Achilles heel. Maybe they're gonna come at him with a time machine.
Yeah, send him back in time, and he'll go away. But yeah, he has a huge part of he's a huge part of the story. There is a part where he becomes an antagonist, but I'll leave that for the prequel.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Were there any? I mean, did you have 10? Again, you have 20 characters like total, right? How did you come up? You have more. So how did you come up with all the paranormal powers? And were there any ones that were left on the floor, on the cutting room floor, as they say?
Well, even the ones that are left on the cutting room floor, they're still assigned to characters. And, although they may not be in the Icarus Metro storyline, they may be in the prequel that leads up to Icarus Metro. So like they'll still be there. They'll make their cameos and stuff like that, but they'll still, I have so many stories, so much use for all these different characters. Like, why not? We have a lot more characters than just the 20 heroes, or the 10 heroes and the 10 antagonists, because there are other different heroes that are mentioned too. But the main thing is like with it, everybody else is like side characters, people who don't have that much significance, but just to build side characters is good because they can also like link stories together. For what I'm looking to do. I would say out of these characters, how did I come up with them powers? How did I come up with them? A few of the characters actually came up by my sister. She came up, like Simone Stone from the first book is actually made my sister's image. Viscosity I made up. Callus I made up. Net, the guy I mentioned before, was actually made an image of one of my baby pictures. Got a character in Icarus 1 called Black. He's not one of the main members, but he's actually made in my image. I had some characters made in the image of my little brother. Like a lot of the characters you can see, like I made an image like from family members and stuff. Everything else is just created from scratch. But I also like to just incorporate that, just give it like a sense of familiarity with people. Like some people I know are in Icarus 2 as cameos and stuff. Because that was also like a backer reward for Icarus Metro 1. I don't have that as a backer reward for Icarus Metro 2 because there really isn't going to be that much characters within Icarus Metro 2 outside of like the hero and the villain. Well, Icarus Metro 3 outside the hero and the villain. But yeah, it took a lot. It took a lot planning to try to, just build this continuity. Definitely looking forward to just creating more, doing some like spin-off side stories, posting on the website for free. Having the digital for free, the hard copy, available for purchase and stuff. But yeah, that's the sum of it. Yeah.
How do you structure your creative time? Like, you
Time
have a
management.
lot going on. You have a lot of characters. You have a lot of
Oh
ideas.
man,
You're
time
drawing on a
management.
lot of influences. So like when you sit down at the desk, you don't have 8 arms like octopus or something. Like it's just you and 2 arms and a keyboard. How do you structure yourself so that things come out and you get continuity and you're tying it all together at the end of the day?
Honestly, that's very difficult. And I don't really have a concise answer for that yet.
You could get a little long-winded about it.
Yeah, because I know personally, like when I sit on the computer, I got so much things to do because not only am I the writer, but I'm also like the founder. So like I have to like make sure social media is good. I have to make sure the website's good. I have to make sure I'm fulfilling orders and make sure that I'm, managing different things. So it's kind of hard to like always like have my writing time just for my writing. I typically have maybe 2 nights a week where I have the time to just sit down and write. But I'm looking to grow on that even more. But it's hard just, because I work in tech. So I'm sitting on a computer all day. So just to be like sitting on a computer writing all night is very strainful in the eyes. So I don't know if it's kind of hard for me like to sit down and find time to write all the time.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. I do a lot of voice notes. So, I use those voice notes as like, my note taking. Thank God for voice to text on iPhone, because that way I could just speak into and just say what I want to write.
You use it into the Notes app?
Yeah, into the Notes app. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully I'll be able to find a real concise answer to that, because personally, I want to keep creating. Now, question for you. You write?
I do, yeah.
I didn't know that. Like
I'm ghostwriting a comic right now that takes place in World War II.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I made a movie back in the day. I wrote the movie and then like produced it.
For the same
that
comic?
No, this is this is like 10 years ago. It's a different world, a different storyline than what I'm working on now.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk about that because I do want to write movies. So
yeah, it's I think similar process. Actually, one of my early guests, we were talking about movies. He also wanted to do movies, but transitioned to writing comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him about my experience making a movie, and making a movie is hard. Essentially,
yeah,
you got a lot of moving parts. I mean, video, audio, all of the help you need to manage things, actors. But when you're writing a comic, like you can produce it all by yourself, right?
No.
If you're a good artist and you're a good writer.
Well, yes. If you have all the
skills and all the time in the world.
Yeah. And all the time.
But if you are a writer, you just need to find one artist at least, and then you could fill in the other gaps as needed. Like you said, you got an editor for this comic, get a letterer. If you're doing colors, you get a colorist. But at the end of the day, you just need the story and art to tie it together, as opposed to doing movies, which is so many more moving parts.
I feel like it is so many more moving parts, but it's kind of the same, but just on a small comics is just on a smaller scale.
Right.
Because I know for comics, you have to get your team. If you don't get your team, and just for those who are looking to creating, if you don't get your team, it's going to be very hard. You have to have your team laid out in the beginning before you even start getting the artwork made. I mean, you always have to start with the script. Any movie, comic, book, they all start with the script. Then when you get the script, then when you find your artist, someone who's worthwhile for your book, then you get the artist and you have to, work out that deal. If you don't want that artist to color, you find a colorist, work out that deal. Find a letterer, work out that deal. Find an editor, work out that deal. Well, the editor should go first. The editor should go for the script first. But then you have to just make sure everything is smooth. It's a smooth transition. Because I've heard numerous cases for some people sometimes where they say that they had someone working on their art and then boom, next thing you know, the person says, I don't want to work on this anymore. Here's your money back.
Oh man, yeah.
Now I know
that ties up your project. Your timeline's all thrown off.
Yeah, that ties up and throws off everything because artwork doesn't take like a week to do. Like it takes like 2 to 3 months, to get something made. But I'm pretty sure for movies, it's a lot more because you're doing editing, audio, lighting, and the cost. I mean, comics is expensive. You're paying about maybe $100, $115 per page, including coloring. But I'm pretty sure for movies, and my goal one day is to make this or make, movies about certain characters or at least a mini series show on YouTube or whatever I could pitch it to about certain characters. But I know that's going to cost average 10,000 per episode at least.
Minimum. Depends on how far you go with displaying your paranormal powers. Right?
Exactly. And I want to show the best. If I show the best, special effects is going to kill me. Because you almost have to have green screen everywhere, unless you could just build it up. See. And that's why I tell people you should really pay attention to how hard some people are out here creating, especially like the YouTubers, RDC, all the other different people that are like making special effects, like their TikToks and YouTube videos, because they're putting so much time into that. And, they're not movie grade quality, but they're still great. Like,
yeah. And it takes time, and it's a lot of times now one individual doing these projects as opposed to a whole studio.
Yeah.
They're like, they're not studio grade, but they're pretty damn good considering.
Yeah. And they're doing for free. Like they're just giving it to you,
Yeah.
Of course they're getting money from streams, but they're giving you the content. Like they don't have to make it. Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. So I'm writing too for this comic. I was brought into a team to be one of that kind of cast of people to bring it together. And it's been a good experience so far to work in that environment and write. But that's, when I ask my guests about their creative process, how they tie things together, how they organize themselves when they are writing, as much as it's for my audience and anybody listening, it's also for my own benefit to get feedback and advice. Yeah.
And, I'm not sure whether or not this would be a personal question, but for you being brought on to that team, were you looking for compensation when you were, brought onto that team? Because that is your time,
Yeah, definitely. At least a little bit, but also you got to get your chops, right? You need to start somewhere and build up experience and get better through that experience. So I think for indie creatives, that's another challenging thing because you need to be paid for your time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of the people managing these projects aren't getting paid at the end of the day, and they're investing their money and they're just trying to recoup, and they want to do well by you, but at the same time, they need to balance a checkbook at the end of the day. So it's hard being in the indie space. It's very exciting. But the financial side is challenging, right? Like you said, you're working every day, sitting in front of a computer, then you gotta get in front of the computer again to do your creative stuff.
Honestly, it's very difficult.
Takes a push.
Yeah, it's very difficult, especially when working with other people too, because it's like you said, you want to do right by them, but it is kind of hard at the same time because, you know, you're not getting paid either. You know, I do feel like for people who are in that type of space where they know that they're working with other people that they may need, like that's when Indiegogo or Kickstarter should come into play.
Right.
You know, I do feel like, you know, when a person is going through, you know, just creating by themselves, you know, Indiegogo and Kickstarter is cool if you have the backing, if you have the following, but if you don't, you know, it's kind of just like, all right, build that first, you know, get your fan base, get the books out, get people reading, get people, you know, get it buzzing, go to cons, do different things like that. Make sure you have that before you start a campaign, because a lot of people don't understand what a campaign truly is. You know, you're campaigning, but giving rewards back. So it's often like you're creating a store and people are buying products from this store, you know, in order to support you as a creator, opposed to them thinking that you're just having a GoFundMe to make a buck.
Right. Do you think that your audience from Juice was critical to the success and future success of the Icarus series?
No, I don't. I don't even think they know that I'm making this.
Really? You didn't tap into that audience?
Yeah, I
too
don't
much?
even think they know, because I mean, I put out like certain webtoons updates and let them know like, hey, this Kickstarter is going on. Hey, this is what I'm doing. But I don't even think a lot of them even like, you know, because it's been 2 years since I updated it. You know, it's been years since I've updated it. So a lot of them probably not even looking into, you know, that page anymore.
Juice anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like I would have to like restart fresh and then build a new audience. But
if they follow it, can you give them like an update somehow through Juice and say, hey,
no, I have. Yeah.
now there's Icarus. You did. Okay.
Yeah, I have. I have.
So what's your advice for, you know, building audience for a successful campaign?
I would say community outreach. The best thing, I mean, social media is very volatile, you know, there's always different algorithms popping up, different ways to make content, different strategies that people say to follow that may not necessarily work, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's hard to cut through all the advice out there.
Information. Yeah. Like, I do know that for those who are starting to create out, the best way is, like I said, community outreach and gimmicks.
What would be some examples of each for you? For like, what's community outreach? What does that mean to you?
So community outreach is like, you know, getting your book produced and going to conventions, selling your books at conventions, getting people aware of stuff at conventions, giving free prints, you know, having banners, having your shirts, having a bunch of people with you, getting someone to cosplay a character, just having that whole community table, that community outreach, getting and just doing that like once a month, maybe even twice a month, going to schools, going to book fairs, going to, you know, just there's so many different things, just showing face, showing them that you exist. Because people see things online, it's like, oh, you're just another one. But if they see you existing out in the real world, then, you know, they're definitely going to support. And you may get more supporters in real life than you do online.
That's good advice.
What I do, the second one is gimmicks. You know, you might need to follow the TikTok trends. You know, you might need to follow, you know, do certain things to you know, do some dances on TikTok or do some dances on Reels and get people in that way. I mean, I feel like a lot of people blow up that way, you know, funny videos, stuff like that. So I feel like that is another good way to get exposure. Not sure. Me, I don't have time to just be, you know, doing funny dances all the time.
I was gonna say, if I dig in a little bit, I'm gonna find you doing some funny dances then.
you might. You might. During the earlier days. But I don't have time to just build content like that. You know, I'm more of an in-person talker. I mean, you can see from here, I'm talking a lot, you know, but you know, that's my preferred method, you know. because like you're making funny videos, making all these sorts of content. You're not making content true to what you're trying to build.
Yeah, all that takes time, right?
Yeah, and that takes time too.
Yeah.
If you don't have time to consistently do that all the time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Which power do you want?
Well, I made my character have like dark aura character powers. So he's like a well-dressed guy with dark aura powers, and he walks around with a hilt, like a sword hilt, and he's able to like turn his dark powers into like a sword. So I was a huge fan of Yu Yu Hakusho growing up. And I always thought like Yusuke was like swagged out. He was so cool. But I always thought Kuwabara had the strongest power, and they just misused him. You know?
Well, because he's a delinquent, and they couldn't let him get away with stealing the show, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they all were delinquents.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, I just thought he had the coolest power. So I made something similar.
Yeah. Going back, switching gears. I like to switch gears a lot, as you could tell. It seems like the stories you're writing are very much character based. You're basing each story, each issue around a character, exploring their personality, getting a little bit deeper about that individual character. What would you say the overall themes, the overarching themes of the series are? Okay. And like, what are you exploring through the narrative outside of the characters themselves?
Okay, so I will tell you why I'm doing the characters first. So why I'm exploring these characters into like different characters and having each issue focus on different characters is because we don't have no characters yet. We don't have a world yet. You know, I want to show people, hey, you know, it's kind of like how Marvel did Tales to Astonish. You know, they started off with their first comic, then they had Groot and other characters. They had Ant-Man. You know, people don't realize that these were some of the first Marvel characters. They had Hulk, they had Thor, and they just kept building book after book on different characters. So I'm not taking that as a blueprint, but I'm taking that as okay, I have to establish characters first. I have to establish a world first. People have to know what's like, not ultimately what's going on, because the story doesn't matter. It's just a matter about what could happen. What can happen? What am I following here? Like, what's the message behind the story? What is this person battling? So I said before, you know, each person is battling a specific issue, personal issue. In book one, she was battling post-traumatic depression. In this book, he's battling misunderstanding of his identity. Next book, family issues. The book after, what's I was gonna say cause and effect. Because you did something here, this happened. Because of what they did, that happened. You know, book after that is like, you know, believing in yourself. You know, it's just I think it's believing in yourself. Yeah. You know, so it's just there's different themes I'm focusing on each character so they can get a better understanding of their character's personality and where their character is today, while getting a glimpse at their backstory. Now,
that's cool.
Once this is done, of course, like I said before, you know, I can go deeper and then like for example, I could have a book called Catalyst, you know, and then it just goes into her story and I give her a 15 story arc, you know. But right now, it's kind of like, all right, let me build up the world a little bit before I go on singular issues and stuff. Or let me build up the world. Let me build up maybe 5 different stories before I do like a Civil War or like an Infinity War or something. You know?
Right. I like the fact that even though each character is unique to the point where I wouldn't be able to relate to each of them on the surface, I can relate to them from the perspective of these themes that you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And
you possibly would know someone who can relate to the characters. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. One thing when I was reading through the Kickstarter that kind of jumped out at me was, and you mentioned it early on in this conversation, was kind of that they weren't protagonists in the beginning, that they might have challenged pasts or they might have done bad things in the past. So I was wondering if, the perspective or the question of judging people now based on their past actions versus judging them based on who they are and where they're going, if that was something that you're exploring through these characters who do have dynamic backgrounds.
Oh, no, not me. Me personally, I write, like, a lot of my writing I do out of the perspective of what I've seen others go through.
No, I didn't mean to ask it of you, but like, is that how are you exploring that through the characters, and how does that impact the trajectory of the story?
Okay.
And,
I mean, I would say like
some people might come into this and, like random example of a person might come and be like, I don't like those characters. They're kind of bad people. They're just like, she's just doing it for money. They're vigilantes, so like, how do you explore, how do you feel about that vigilante nature that, and vigilante justice, I guess?
There's a little background, like for the characters, for example, them exploring their different identities. It's more so like this is like a snapshot of where they are currently in their life. These characters per se, I don't necessarily want to make them too much to be a bad person or too much to be a good person, but just more so very realistic about how people are in this area. Now, of course, it's all location based. Me personally, I live in a real, I live in the suburbs, but I'm near a downtown area. And I work in New York City. So I see different types of people, different types of attitude, different types of personalities. And I try to write based off of what I see. So like her, for example, she may not be as warm-hearted as the other woman in the story. But because she has that biker feel to her, she has that street punk feel to her, but she also has another side to her that, will be kind of teased at, within the different types of stories. So, I wouldn't say don't judge the characters too early because anything can happen. I mean, like I said, we're just starting,
Cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to address or talk about before we wrap up? I've been wrapping up each episode with what I call 5 quick questions, which is a shorter segment of the episode that I spin off as a short version of the episode. So okay. I definitely want to end with that. But before we dive into those questions, happy to field any other questions or steer this in any tangential direction you want before we wrap up.
No, I just want to say, our Kickstarter ends December 3rd, and hopefully everybody can get their eyes on the Kickstarter and tune in. Definitely looking to spread awareness for the stories and expand on the stories so that we can, keep creating and keep making sure that we're delivering quality content and quality stories to you based off perspectives of just a variety of different characters. Icarus Metro 2, this hopefully will be able to get out to everyone before the new year. That way we'll be able to provide Icarus 3, 4, and 5 next year. Yes, I will try to knock out 3 issues next year.
Awesome.
So definitely looking forward to doing that and, producing that for everyone and, producing more stories to come.
Yeah. And I forgot one other question I had or to not frame it as a question, but tell me about your podcast. I understand you also have a podcast, the Innovative Dream Podcast.
Yes.
So, what's that all? Yes. What's that all about?
So it's like an entrepreneurship podcast. I haven't done any episodes recently, but it's a entrepreneurship podcast where I talk to different creatives, entrepreneurs, and people just doing fun and interesting stuff. Talk about them, what they're doing, how they're, what their next move is, and what they're looking to offer for different people for their services. So I've talked to different people working in tech, different people who worked in hair care, fitness, different people who worked in consulting services, and just getting a broader perspective on just different challenges that they face. I know, a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, and I actually started it January of 2020 before the pandemic hit. I started
Oh, okay.
but it was actually great that I started it then, because I know for a lot of people that I know, everybody wanted to start a business because the pandemic, you couldn't go outside. It was just an opportunity for people to just grow, especially with the stimulus checks. So, people listening to my podcast and just getting that different perspective, from people who, just starting out. And I know some of the people who are just starting out, a lot of people, CEOs now, startup owners, full-time creatives, and just that's the innovative dream. So definitely check it out if you want to listen in on some perspectives and interested in somebody's craft to potentially make your own.
Awesome. Yeah. And then as a real wrap-up question, any other activities from you? Podcast, comic writing, anything else that you're producing and
nothing else at the time. Yeah, I have some stuff in stored, but it's too early to even talk about that because I may change my mind.
Cool. All right. Well, let's dive into 5 quick questions, basically wrap up the episode. So the first is, do you have a personal mantra that you use to get yourself going when creatively?
Believe it. No, I'm joking.
The way you said it, it got me going.
I'm Naruto Uzumaki. No. I would say never give up.
Never give up. That's words of wisdom to live by. Definitely.
Never give up on what you love to do.
And that definitely came into play for you, I think, when you rebounded, right?
Yeah. That's because when you stop doing things, it kind of it tears a piece of your heart,
Yeah, you got to do what you love to be you, I think.
To be you, yeah.
Is there any indispensable tool in your creative toolbox?
What do you mean by that?
So I purposely phrased the question a little bit ambiguously, but is there something material that you use as a tool?
Oh, yeah. I love, big fan of Google products, Google Sheets, Google Docs, use that a lot. I use Trello, it's easy to do that, to just plan.
Nice. Yeah. I'm a big, I don't know if I'm a big fan of Google, but I am a big fan of Google products. And I use them as well. Eyes on the prize. What's the prize?
An anime, potentially, or TV show or movie.
So yeah. So transitioning from comics to
a video medium. Yeah. And if not for Icarus Metro, me potentially writing for a different medium, providing that content for people to see and love and view.
And I noted, I did go back and look at the page for the first Icarus Metro Kickstarter, and you had some animated video for that. What was that? What was that? That was awesome.
So the animated video, I have an animator. He's actually doing the character art for the reboot of Juice. So he's actually doing all the character sketches and stuff right now. But yeah, I asked him, I said, hey, I want to do an animated clip, an anime version of a clip of these characters so I can, showcase the Kickstarter. And took maybe 6 months, and he was able to produce that for me. So that's beautiful. A start to show, cause I didn't think I'd be able to do that. And I did it. So it's okay, now I can actually get it filmed. Now, don't get me wrong, it's costly, but it's not a pipe dream anymore.
Yeah. And it's a kind of a tease of where your eyes are on that video prize. I think you're on your way, man. Question number 4. This is when we get to time travel. Advice you would give to a past self.
Don't worry about what other people think about you, and just go ahead and create and do what you love. Because honestly, if I knew that and I knew what I knew now, I would already have about maybe 20 stories done.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Don't let that external judgment get in the way.
Don't let the external judgment get in the way. Keep creating. It doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter what people do. Just follow what you can make money doing anything you love to do.
Awesome. Now, question for a future you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. What is a question you have for a future you?
For a future me. Was it worth it?
That's not the first time I heard that one.
Oh man, I don't know whether or not that was from a movie or a TV show that I just recently saw.
It hits hard though. Yeah.
Wasn't
I'm
that
not sure.
Wasn't that from Avengers?
Was it? Was it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think little Gamora said to Thanos, "Was it worth it?" And then Thanos said, "It was." Yeah, that's what I would ask the future himself. Was it worth it?
Was it worth it? Well, yeah, Calvin, definitely worth it to have you here. And it was a pleasure chatting, and look forward to seeing the success of Icarus Metro 2. And then next year, 3, 4, and 5, right? You're gonna kick out 3 issues.
Let's just kick it out, you know.
Everybody get out there and check out the Kickstarter, which is live now. And what are your social media accounts if they need some links to click through?
Yes, you can find us always www.icarusmetro.com or icarusmetrocomics.com or innovativedream.com, all same site. Or you can find us at Icarus Metro Comics on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And you can find us at Icarus Metro on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me. And until next time, enjoy the random.
Until next time. Peace.
Hello, my fellow randoms. Thank you for hanging on tight for the post-show debriefing. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Calvin as much as I did. And it was a fun one and an introspective one. And it kind of put me in the mode of thinking about overcoming my own doubts, my own fear of judgment, my own obstacles, things that are getting in the way of my own creativity and flow. And man, sometimes I just need to get out of my own way, it seems, and get out there and create. I hope that was inspiring. I hope that anybody out there listening is able to, walk away from this podcast with feeling some sense of community among other creatives. Maybe you can relate directly or indirectly to the experiences of some of my guests. I know I certainly do, and I benefit from each and every conversation. So I hope that you do too. Reach out to us. Let us know what you like about the show, what you don't, what you took away from it. And just continue to create and share with us what you create by tagging us at What's Your Random. And until next time, enjoy your random. Thanks.